Hey everybody, I'm here with Jen Scalia. So Jen Scalia is the go-to expert for entrepreneurs and business owners who want the world to know their name. Now, Jen has an incredible story, in her own words, going from basically, rock bottom to being this massive, seven-figure business superstar in just a few years. And one of the things I like about Jen is her no BS business wisdom and kind of her approach to things in the online business world. And that wisdom of hers has been featured all over the internet, from Forbes and Inc. and Success, Entrepreneur on Fire, Inspired Coach, Furnished TV, and all these other outlets. And now, and this is what brings us to this call, is that Jen is the international best-selling author of Your First Six Figures. It's the #1 best-selling book in the category starting a business in Canada, United States, UK, Australia, all over the place. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey towards authordom and the book itself. So Jen, tell us a little bit about your book and specifically what makes it different from some of the other titles that you've seen out there. What's the gold in your book?
I think really first, the book is obviously titled Your First Six Figures. And I really just go through the process of what it takes to create that first six figures. And to be honest with you, I really feel like that's the hardest. Once you create that first six figures, I feel like the next and the next are a little bit easier because you kind of, you're in your flow, you've reached your zone of genius and all of that stuff. But so many people get stuck in those beginning phases, and it's easy to get stuck because there's so much content. There's so many different ways to market. There's so many different people talking in your ears saying you should do this and you should do that. So I really based the book on my personal experiences and how I've worked with my clients to go from, just like you were saying, from rock bottom to just increasing my income, my business, my credibility, people knowing me in such a short period of time. So, what I really wanted to do with the book was give people a way that they could get all this knowledge and get all this information and apply it right away. So, we really held nothing back in the book as far as giving people exact steps, exact tips, strategies that they can implement in their business right now without having to hire a coach, without having to take another program. If they're really savvy enough and, apply what's in the book, they can reach their first six figures just by going step by step. So I really feel like that is the difference between this book and some of the other books out there. Is a lot of the other books out there are giving kind of a broad overview or a theory. They're more inspirational. Really, I wanted to get to the heart of here's what you actually have to do to make it happen.
That's awesome. So I love the fact that it's success re-engineered. So it's not a bunch of theories or ideas or this might work or you could try this, but no, this is exactly what you have to do to get your first six figures in your business.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and so in terms of the practicality, I think that word practical, if we created a word cloud of all of the dozens of positive reviews your book is getting online, that would probably be the top word of the word cloud of practical. It's such a practical book versus, like you said, inspirational or ideas or theory. But it's you buy the book, you follow it, you get your first six figures. That's basically how it goes. So,
for $10 or less.
Yes, I mean it is $2 for the Kindle. I mean, that's the ultimate return on investment right there for readers. So I think a couple of years ago, I came across a New York Times article that said that 82% of people, not just business people or entrepreneurs, which is your market, but 82% of all people want to write a book. But very few of those people actually do. So from your perspective as basically going from, this entrepreneur to kind of this authorpreneur here, why did this book, Your First Six Figures, why did you have to get it written and released now at this time in your business?
Well, it's interesting because I was one of those people who also just kind of wanted to, but never, I guess, didn't have the know-how, didn't maybe think I was good enough at the time. But I've always had a book inside me. I actually started my first book, probably 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and then just stopped. And I feel like a lot of people get to that point too, where they start the process and then they just stop, whatever's going on for them. It could just be they're too busy, or it could just be that they don't have the knowledge, or they get stuck and they just completely stop. And that's what happened with me, is that, and it's great actually that I waited, because the book is so much better now. But, I did want to, originally just tell about my story, talk about my story and how I overcame a lot of, things that people go through, but that usually let them, or usually make them stop, and usually
Yeah.
like stop them from actually going for their dreams and their hopes. So that was the, original idea for the book, was really my journey and my story. And as I kind of waited over the last few years, I've built up so much knowledge, so much strategies, and just the know-how to be able to really make this book amazing. So, I was one of those people that hesitated, but I'm glad that it came out now, because now it's just so amazing. It's so full of just wisdom and tips and things that I probably wouldn't have known a few years ago. So I think it was the perfect timing. I have built my tribe online pretty much organically, have been featured in tons of places, have been speaking. And I think it was just time to like, okay, let's solidify this. Let's solidify Jen as like the leader, the entrepreneur that knows how to get people from 0 to 6 figures. And that is exactly what we did with the book.
Perfect. And so now you've established yourself as, so originally like your brand is, being the go-to person when you want the world to know your name.
Yeah.
And so now you're like, that's definitely in the world of, PR and promotion and content marketing. And so now like you're going a step above that even, which is not just the world knowing your name, but I'm the person that you go to when you want to go and get your first 6 figures. And so you're kind of like expanding and broadening your brand to open up your courses, your programs, your world, your tribe to an even greater number of people.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, one of the points that you made to me during our many calls together was like, you wrote the book on this. And nobody can take that away from me now, like you were saying, international bestseller in starting a business, which is not an easy category to reach the top, I mean, it's a very competitive category. And so, it really, really did solidify that. It's like Jen is not only the go-to person to help you with your visibility and, getting your name out there, but also in helping you actually create income through that business.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really exciting stuff. So you were saying that like this was the absolute perfect time for the book. But like you were saying, you started this process several years ago, and a lot of people spend years writing their books. And you could have done that, right? You could have said, okay, this is the time to get this book out. Now I'm going to get up at 4:30 a.m. every morning and go to bed at 12:30 a.m. every night, and like that's when I'm going to write my book. But you went the route of bringing in yours truly here to like facilitate the process and go from, the book outline and some of the ideas that you had to this finished masterpiece in this process. So I'm curious, from your perspective, why did it make sense to bring in the subject matter expert in, ghostwriting and publishing and like the process of writing a book rather than try to do it yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't know how. I think that was a big thing that was stopping me. But the reality is, like, I've been writing since I was very young. I'm a born writer. I'm a great writer. I've written so much content over the last few years as far as blogs and Facebook posts and even just, audio content, been interviewed. So I just had so much content already. And, the book was already written. It was written, but it was everywhere. It was kind of like all over the place. And, for me, I was just like, okay, like this book is written. I have it. I've already written it. Where do I start? How do I put it together? How do I edit it? How do I make it flow? How do I make it all cohesive? And that was the part that also really tripped me up, which is why I decided to hire you and have somebody who is the expert in that take all of the content that I already put out into the world and put it together into this masterpiece.
Absolutely. And I think you've got the right word there, masterpiece for sure. So you're right. There is a process of kind of like repurposing, the content from the transcriptions and the podcasts and the interviews and the courses and the blogs and the programs. And like I said, all this content that's out there in the world, but it needs to be like distilled down in the right format. And of course, making sure you're choosing the right things that get put into the book. Now, I know that a lot of people, especially like you said, you're a writer by trade, like that's creating content that's your world. So I know, especially for people like you, it's a concern where you bring in a third party who's now basically reworking content, somebody else, but it has to be in your voice. So Can you talk a little bit about like what the process was like for me as the guy who's basically acting in print, so to speak? I'm playing you, you as the author, and I'm, working with this content. Tell me a little bit about maybe if you had initial nerves, and then what it was like to say, wow, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just you, but I like totally trusted you from day one. I was just like, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. And I was just, for me, it was super easy. I just pretty much had to say like, here's all of my stuff, make magic with it. And, I just really trusted you. And, I really felt like you understood my voice, and even just the way you wrote certain things. I was like, wow, did I write that or did he write that? So yeah, definitely. I mean, the process was so easy. I felt really good about it because I knew it was still my content. It was still my words. It was still my strategies. It was still my story. It was just that you were helping me package it in such a way that made it easy for people to understand, put together in just, a real concise, but really effective piece that people could sit down and absorb really in like one sitting, but get the full gist of like who I am, what I do, how I can help them, and how they can essentially help themselves. So I love the process. I thought it was amazing. I've already, told so many people about you because I'm just like, it was such an incredible process. And it was totally, worth every penny.
So speaking about the process, I know one of the another concern that authors have is like the time suck of getting a book done. But you talk about it as being an easy process. And I remember we would go chapter by chapter. We'd be like, okay, chapter 7. I would send it over to you, and 2 days later, you get back and say, yeah, gotta tweak this, that, and the other. We're good. Move on to chapter 8. So did it seem to you like it was not a time-consuming process? Like it was pretty easy to go throughout the writing process?
Yeah, I mean, it happened really fast. It happened a lot faster than I thought. It happened a lot faster than I expected. When you originally gave me the timeline, I was like, wow, really? Like, that seems pretty fast. And then even as we were going through the process, it seemed even faster. It was just like, it was just being pumped out like crazy. And yeah, it was just a matter of me kind of going through and saying, okay, this sounds like me. This doesn't sound like me. Let's add this. Let's take this out. And yeah, it was just a really smooth and easy process for me. And yeah, anybody that maybe is thinking like that it's hard or it's going to take long, it's a lot harder and it's going to take a lot longer when you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, and there you go. And so now we fast forward a little bit, where I think we're about 6 or 7 weeks into the release of your book. It's out there. So tell me a little bit about like what it's been like to see, your book as #1 with the bestseller label, ahead of, the Lean Startup, ahead of books by, Gary Vaynerchuk, for instance. You're, selling better than that when it came out. So what are you seeing in terms of like the benefits of authordom and doors being open for you at this point, 6 weeks in?
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. And it's crazy because, I already had a little bit of credibility, well, a lot of credibility, so I already had a really strong base and foundation. But I do feel like people are just like finding me now. People are just like reaching out to me. I don't really have to do a lot of the legwork. It's, people are picking up the book. They're, sending me messages on Facebook. They're sending me messages on Instagram. They're telling my friends, oh my God, I'm reading Jen's book, so it's just like, people are just really, excited about the book, which makes me really excited. And I just feel like it's gone so much further than I have been able to do, or that I probably would have been able to do on my own without the book. But yeah, as far as being bestseller, like I just, actually just re-uploaded a different cover, and I was like,
with the little star on it of being,
yeah, we got a little star that said international bestseller. And, I did hit the refresh. I did the search on Amazon, and the yellow or the orange banner that says bestseller came up. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. It is really awesome to see, not only the completion of the book, which most people don't get to, but then having that status of, best-selling author, #1 best-selling author, international best-selling author, really is a true mark of credibility.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I mean, I know in terms of the credibility, the trustworthiness, the status, the influence from that, for an author, especially in business, like it's one of those things where, like, let's say the growth curve of the business and the credibility influence, having that book is like an instant thump up in terms of opportunities and doors opening and those sorts of things. And it seems like just 6 weeks in, you're already seeing those results.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I just think about, you know, somebody who maybe doesn't already have like a huge tribe or a big following or credibility, like what this can do to skyrocket you in your business and your credibility is just incredible. It's really amazing.
Skipping the line, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All the hard work. That is awesome, Jen. Well, congratulations, you international bestseller, you.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you joining me today and showing a little bit about the process. I wish you well in the future, and many more copies sold and doors open for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, you got it.